The member for Gippsland East.
Thank you very much, Acting Speaker, and it's a pleasure to rise to talk on the Livestock Management Amendment Animal Activism Bill. Interesting, Speaker, to follow. I didn't know that moving amendments was going to delay the bill. I think they either get adopted or they don't, and the bill will pass this House on Thursday due to the government having the numbers. So it's not a delaying tactic at all, Acting Speaker. It is a suggestion to improve protections for farmers. The other matter is that the member for Yan Yean, who was telling me to be quiet when she was talking, so I'll reciprocate there, we were talking about the fines in the bills, in this bill as compared to other jurisdictions. And yes, the trespassing fines are comparable to the other jurisdictions, but the fines around biosecurity breaches are not. They are lower in Victoria. The trespasses are comparable. So the member for Murray Plains' amendments relate to toughening up the bills that relate to biosecurity. And I want to say up front, Acting Speaker, that I support the amendments moved by the member for Murray Plains because they do further strengthen the penalties for biosecurity, and the issue around river frontages is real. We have a situation where the government introduced camping on riverfronts and the ability to access riverfronts, but those farmers who have riverfront access should not be disadvantaged in relation to biosecurity levels, and that is what this amendment goes to the heart of. I'll talk more about that later, but it's worth recapping on how we arrived at this bill. And we know that in 2019, Aussie Farms went out and created their website and created their Facebook page that included publications of maps that highlighted farming practices. It included in that data the nature of those farming operations, and it was all presented like this was some horrible thing, that these people were doing the wrong thing, that they were illegal practices. This is not the case. And that data and that map was subsequently used by animal activists to invade farms with no notice and cause much distress and much trauma. It really was disgraceful behaviour, Acting Speaker. Pleasingly, the Australian Charities and Not-for-Profits Commission investigated and revoked the charity status of Aussie Farms in late 2019. But appallingly, it was revealed that one of these activists that had been charged and fronted up to court, can you believe, got a $1 fine. Scaring the living daylights out of a farming family, and a $1 fine for breaking biosecurity laws at a farm in Gippsland. Now, following this, a parliamentary inquiry was set up to investigate these matters, and my colleague Miss Barth in the other House did play a leading role in that, and then played a leading role in the inquiry itself. And we got the outcomes that we arrived at. But then, I guess in true Labor fashion, they sat on it. And it was not until November last year, when questioned on the progress, that we saw a little bit of action. Now, this is in stark contrast, Acting Speaker, to Queensland and New South Wales. When this issue arose around Aussie Farms and these farm invasions, they introduced stronger actions and stronger on-the-spot fines by the end of 2019. They were serious about it. More than 2 years ahead of when we're arriving at this same point in time. Now, these changes are welcome news, and they'll hopefully stop these activists being a law unto themselves, waltzing onto farms and causing significant stress and significant trauma to law-abiding farmers. But what we need when we have new laws passed by any parliament is we need to have a thirst to enact them, Acting Speaker. These new laws will come into play, and I would hope that the authorities that can enact these do so with the full force of the law, and do so to hold these people accountable to the strongest degree for their actions. Now, the member for Murray Plains has moved one of the amendments that goes to the heart of increasing fines for trespassing. Absolutely fantastic, I say, Acting Speaker. Let's be able to throw the book at these people and let them think twice before they go and invade farms and put at risk the biosecurity of that farm and terrorise these farming families. Now, in relation to the the biosecurity matters, this will put the fines more in line with those in other states. We shouldn't be more lenient here. The other amendment that related to water frontages is this bill's excluded these. Now, seemingly not to conflict with the riverfront camping scheme, and I can understand that, but it's not right, because just because you have a farm that abuts a river frontage does not mean you should have a lower biosecurity protection put in place. You should be afforded the same level of protections as all other farmers. This riverfront camping was going to be all over the state. We won't go into the train wreck that it has turned out to be, but riverfront properties must be included and must be afforded the same level of protections as all farms. I want to talk for a few moments to reference some comments from Mr Medic from the Animal Justice Party in the other place. And these are some comments that Mr Medic made in relation to these activists that are at the heart of this legislation. Now, Mr Medic defended these farm invaders as whistleblowers who were somehow doing this great service to our communities. He seemed to think that them invading farms unannounced and causing great trauma to our farming families was in some way okay, because they were justifying it in relation to animal protectionism. Invading farms and invading people's private homes and properties is not acceptable under any circumstance. Now, there's some irony in the comments from Mr Medic, Acting Speaker, because when activists targeted his home some months later due to his stance on the pandemic bill, Mr Medic came out and said, "I understand why people disagree. People disagree in a vibrant democracy, but you don't have the right to come to someone's house and make their family feel physically in danger." That was his comments when activists targeted his home, and I agree with him. I agree with Mr Medic 100%. You don't have the right to come to somebody's home, and you don't have the right to make them feel in danger. We're 100% in agreement. But I point out to Mr Medic that you cannot run with the foxes and hunt with the hounds. You just can't do that. And these farms are the farmers' homes. And these activists had these farming families feeling in danger and under threat in their homes. The very same feeling that Mr Medic and his family experienced when they were targeted. And it's not appropriate. These farming families, as the previous speaker on my side referred to, they were yelled at, they were called killers, they were called murderers. They were told that these animal activists would return. But when Mr Medic was exposed to this abhorrent behaviour himself, and as I said, I'm fully on the same page with him, he somehow justifies the animal activists, but he's outraged when he's the target. Well, it's no different. They both felt very vulnerable. They both felt very, very scared. And it took, I'm suggesting it took that terrible experience that Mr Medic had to have at his own home to realise that it's not a lot of fun, Acting Speaker, when you're targeted in your own home like these animal activists were doing. It was okay when it suited his cause, but it wasn't okay when it was targeted at him. And I would hope that that experience that he endured would now have him realising a little bit more that the actions of these people involved in these farm invasions was not appropriate at all and needs much, much, much stronger action. So in concluding, Acting Speaker, I do support the amendments as proposed by the member for Murray Plains, and I do support the changes that this bill presents in its entirety. It is a step in the right direction to afford farmers and farming families a much higher level of protection, and I do hope it a speedy passage and enactment through the Parliament system.